My name's Mark Barry. I'm from Dublin originally. I'm now living in London and have been since 1989. I'm 55 years of age. I'm married and I have 3 children, a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. On the 14th of December 2012, when Sandy Hook happened, I was in St. Barts Hospital in the City of London and I was awaiting quadruple bypass open heart surgery. I eventually had to spend 75 days in hospital. I wrote a book about it called My Broken Heart, 75 Days in the NHS. There's 75 verses of poems, and number 19 of 75 is the poem that I'm about to read out quite shortly. It was my reaction to the events of 14 December 2012. The poem contains elements of autism also, because as the parent of a special needs child, our son Dean is 22. I think I understand to some degree how the parents of Sandy Hook feel. The best way to describe this is that as a parent of a special needs child, it's not just a bereavement, it's a bereavement you get no closure on. It doesn't go away, it doesn't abate with time, it doesn't get better, in fact it only gets worse. And of course then you're left with a huge amount of self-recrimination and self-doubt. You ask a great deal of questions of yourself. Could I have done this? Could I have said more? Could I have prevented this somehow? But in the end, as the years pass, you begin to realize that you're not in power. You're not the ones with the reins of power, and you were not elected into power to change these things. Politicians were and still are. I suspect that the parents in Sandy Hook feel exactly the same, that they are painfully aware of how Barack Obama and the Democratic Party have slyly and craftily betrayed them, have never opened their mouths about gun control or its obvious outcome in American society. So I wrote this poem in response to that. I've been racking my brains then and now as to words that would bring comfort. And I want to say this, and they don't necessarily have to be religious or spiritual to believe this, although I suppose it helps. It doesn't matter how they were taken. What matters is where they are, and they're in the light. This poem is called Real Bad News Into the Light, and this is for the families of Sandy Hook. I hope they understand and I hope they get some comfort from it. I can't brush my teeth now because it rattles the angina, and it's agony to lift up and down my arms. But that's not the small fry reason for my mirror tears, nor incessantly bleating heart monitor alarms. In the American town of Sandy Hook in Connecticut, a lone gunman led his semi-automatic blast. He murdered 20 children and 6 school teachers, then left his twisted self to cowardly last. It's the Sunday morning after and it's headlining the news, all those young innocent faces on display. And I realise just how petty our medical complaints are. What words of comfort could I possibly say? But when I think of the Democrats' campaign strategy and all those crafty issue avoidance techniques, never legislating gun culture and its obvious outcome, loved ones lost because power never speaks. I think of our own son's sentence of lifelong autism because no one checked if he needed that MMR, and how gutless politicians elected to protect our Dean left him broken and needing care forevermore. Now I hear Barack's going to make a public appearance, show the people how his family's hurting as well, but never mention his slick silence on shop-bought rifles that left blood-stained relatives in emotional hell. To lose a child is a bereavement you get no closure on, like a wound that marrows right down to the bone. And knowing that it could easily have been avoided brings that deliberate betrayal right into your home. A parent's anger and hurt will question if a God exists. How can such terrible loss ever be made into right? But I know in my heart of hearts that they're all free now, laughing as they walk arm in arm into the light. I hope that helps.